If you're an immigrant currently applying for a green card or planning to in the near future, listen carefully, because a sudden policy change by USCIS has just taken effect, and it's something that's already causing confusion, panic, and extra costs for thousands of applicants across the United States. This new rule directly impacts the medical exam process that every green card applicant must go through. And it's not just a small tweak, it's a game-changing shift that could delay your application or even cost you hundreds of dollars if you're not prepared. As of June 11, 2025, USCIS has officially updated how it handles Form I-6493, the Report of Medical Examination and Vaccination Record. This form is a critical part of your green card application process. In the past, once you submitted your Form I-6193, it generally remained valid as long as it was filed within a certain time frame and met all the medical criteria, but that's no longer the case. Under the new policy, Form I-693 is now valid only as long as your Form I-485, which is your application to adjust status and obtain a green card, is active. That means, if your I-485 gets denied, or if you withdraw it for any reason, your medical form becomes completely invalid, no matter when it was completed or how recently you submitted it. This change applies to all new and currently pending applications filed on or after June 11, 2025. So even if you've already submitted your paperwork and were waiting for a decision, this rule still affects you. According to USCIS, the goal of this update is to ensure that medical records are current, accurate, and reflect the applicant's health status at the time of decision-making. From a health and safety standpoint, it makes sense. They want to be absolutely sure that applicants have no inadmissible health conditions when they're approved. But from the applicant's perspective, it introduces serious risks, especially in cases where your application is denied for unrelated reasons, like missing documentation or administrative errors. Let's break down what this means for real people. Imagine you went through your medical exam a few months ago. You paid somewhere between $200, 0 cents, and $500, 0 cents, to a USCIS-approved civil surgeon, had your vaccinations updated, got your TB test, and submitted your sealed envelope along with your I-485 application. You thought you were all set, but then, for reasons outside your control, your I-485 is denied. Maybe your sponsor's income didn't meet the requirements, or maybe there was a clerical error that led to a rejection. Under the new rule, your Form I-693 is now worthless. If you refile your I-485, you'll also have to redo your entire medical exam from scratch. Yes, that means paying the full fee again, repeating all tests, and losing the time and money you already spent. And it's not just the cost, it's the stress, the inconvenience, and the delays that come with having to start over. Many immigrants save up for months to pay for their green card medical exams. For families, the costs can quickly add up into the thousands. And now, because of this change, even a minor setback in your application could force you to repeat the whole process. This can be particularly difficult for immigrants from countries where incomes are lower or where currency exchange rates make US medical costs feel even more burdensome. So what should you do? How can you protect yourself from unnecessary costs and avoid delays caused by this new rule? First and foremost, timing is everything. If you haven't yet submitted your Form I-4085, it's now more important than ever to coordinate your medical exam closely with your application submission. Ideally, you should schedule your medical exam within 60 days of submitting your I-4085. That way, the exam is as fresh and current as possible, and it minimizes the risk of it expiring or becoming invalid. Don't do your exam months in advance, and don't assume that just because your application is pending, your medical form is safe. Under the new policy, the minute your I-495 is withdrawn or denied, your Form I-693 is no longer valid, even if it's still within the standard validity window. Another thing to keep in mind is the importance of accuracy. Now that your medical exam can be rendered invalid more easily, it's critical to get it right the first time. Make sure you're using a USCIS designated civil surgeon. Double-check that all the required vaccinations are recorded, the form is signed and sealed correctly, and no sections are left blank. If you mess up the form, USCIS won't just send it back, they might deny your application outright, and that could cost you your medical exam as well as your filing fee. If your green card case is already pending and you haven't submitted your medical exam yet, you may want to wait until you receive a request for evidence, RFE, or until your interview is scheduled. That way, you can avoid getting your medical done too early. However, this depends on your specific case, and it's always smart to talk to an immigration attorney or a reliable advisor before making that call. Immigration law is complex, and timing mistakes can be expensive. The costs involved in all this can't be overstated. Medical exams in the US aren't cheap. The average cost ranges between $200 (0 cents) and $500 (0 cents) per person, depending on your location and what vaccinations or tests are required. If you're a family of 4, you're easily looking at a bill of $800 (0 cents) to $2,000 (0 cents). That's a lot of money to potentially lose if your I-485 is denied. And remember, the denial might not even be your fault. USCIS might find an error in your sponsor's paperwork or decide that more evidence is needed. It's a complex process, and even strong cases can face setbacks. Now, what about people who are currently outside the US and planning to apply through consular processing? Well, this rule applies specifically to adjustment of status applicants within the US using Form 1485. If you're going through consular processing, your medical exam is usually handled abroad and follows a different timeline. But even then, staying aware of changes like this is important, because USCIS often adjusts policies that eventually ripple into the consular process. The big takeaway here is that this rule was introduced suddenly, and it's already in effect. There was no long public comment period, no months-long delay before implementation. It went into effect on June 11, 2025, and it applies to all applications filed from that day forward, including applications that were already in progress but hadn't yet been decided. So if you filed your I-485 before June 11, but your case is still pending, you're also subject to this new policy. That's what makes this rule so critical to understand right now. It's not just for future applicants, it's affecting people in real time. For many immigrants, this has created a wave of anxiety. Social media forums and legal support groups are flooded with questions. People are asking, do I need to redo my medical? What happens if my case gets denied? How do I know if my civil surgeon filled out the form correctly? These are valid concerns, and unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Every case is different, and that's why consulting an immigration attorney or licensed advisor can be a smart move, especially if you're not sure how this rule affects your unique situation. At the end of the day, this change reinforces a larger trend we're seeing in US immigration policy. More scrutiny, more procedural rules, and less margin for error. While the intention may be to maintain health standards and improve efficiency, the practical outcome is that it adds another layer of complexity and cost to an already difficult process. The immigrants are expected to do everything right, follow every rule, and keep up with sudden changes like this, all while managing their lives, families, jobs, and finances. So here's the bottom line. If you're applying for a green card in the US, be extremely careful with the timing of your medical exam. Don't assume that your Form 16093 will remain valid if something goes wrong with your I-485. Be ready for the possibility that you might have to pay again and redo the exam. Save extra funds in case that happens. And most importantly, stay informed. Follow USCIS updates, check your case status regularly, and talk to professionals when in doubt. This rule change may feel like just another hurdle in a long and often frustrating journey toward permanent residency. But with the right preparation and awareness, you can avoid costly mistakes and keep your green card process on track. Immigration is already tough enough. Don't let an unexpected medical form policy make it even harder.